Jacob fought God all night and refused to let go until God broke his hip. Let me tell you why this was the best thing that ever happened to him. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to tell you about one of the strangest and most powerful stories in the Bible. It's about a man named Jacob who spent an entire night wrestling with God. And by morning, everything about his life had changed forever. To understand this story, we need to know who Jacob was. His name literally meant deceiver or trickster, and he lived up to that name his entire life. Jacob was a manipulator, a schemer, someone who always tried to get ahead by outsmarting everyone else. He tricked his older twin brother Esau out of his birthright by exploiting a moment of weakness. Then he deceived his blind father Isaac into giving him the blessing that belonged to Esau. He dressed up in his brother's clothes and put goatskins on his arms. To feel hairy like Esau, he lied right to his father's face. When Esau found out, he was furious. He vowed to kill Jacob, so Jacob had to run for his life. He fled to his uncle Laban's house hundreds of miles away, and that's where Jacob spent the next 20 years. But even there, Jacob kept scheming. He fell in love with Laban's younger daughter Rachel and agreed to work 7 years to marry her. But on the wedding night, Laban switched daughters and gave Jacob the older daughter Leah instead. Jacob had been deceived by a deceiver. He got a taste of his own medicine. So Jacob worked another 7 years for Rachel. Then he spent years working for Laban, trying to build up wealth and flocks of his own. He used selective breeding techniques to increase his herds at Laban's expense, more scheming, more manipulation. Finally, after 20 years, God told Jacob it was time to go home, back to the land of his father, back to face his brother Esau, the brother who had sworn to kill him. Jacob gathered his wives, his children, his servants, and all his flocks and began the long journey home. But the closer he got, the more terrified he became. He sent messengers ahead to Esau, hoping to make peace. The messengers came back with troubling news. Esau was coming to meet Jacob with 400 men. Jacob panicked. He was convinced Esau was coming to destroy him and his entire family. So he did what he always did. He schemed. He divided his family and possessions into 2 groups. That way, if Esau attacked one group, the other might escape. Then he sent gifts ahead, hundreds of goats, sheep, camels, cows, and donkeys. Wave after wave of gifts, hoping to appease his brother's anger. The night before he was supposed to meet Esau, Jacob sent everyone across the Jabbok River, his wives, his children, his servants, everything he owned. He sent them all ahead, and Jacob stayed behind, alone on the other side of the river. Why did he do this? Maybe he wanted time to think. Maybe he was preparing to run if things went badly. Maybe he was just terrified. But Jacob was alone in the darkness, facing the biggest crisis of his life. And that's when it happened. Someone showed up and started wrestling with him. The Bible just says a man wrestled with Jacob until daybreak. But this was no ordinary man. Can you imagine this scene? It's the middle of the night. Jacob is alone by the river. And suddenly someone grabs him and they start fighting. Not a brief scuffle, an all-night wrestling match. Hours and hours of intense physical struggle. Jacob fought with everything he had. This is what he had always done. Fight, scheme, struggle to get what he wanted. He had fought his whole life. Fought his brother, fought his father-in-law, fought against his circumstances. And now he was fighting this mysterious stranger in the darkness. The wrestling continued all night long. Neither could pin the other. Back and forth they went, hour after hour. Jacob would not give up. He would not surrender. He fought with desperate intensity. When daybreak came, the man said to Jacob, "Let me go, for it is daybreak." But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." That's when Jacob realized who he was really fighting. This wasn't just a man. This was God himself appearing in human form. And Jacob, even exhausted and beaten down, refused to let go. He wanted a blessing. He wanted something from God. The man asked Jacob, "What is your name?" Now this seems like a strange question, but it was deeply significant. Jacob had to say his name out loud. Jacob, deceiver, trickster. He had to acknowledge who he really was. Then the man said something that changed everything. "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with humans and have overcome." A new name, a new identity, no longer defined by his past, his schemes, his deceptions. Now he was Israel, which means he struggles with God, or God fights. Jacob asked, "Please tell me your name." But the man replied, "Why do you ask my name?" Then he blessed Jacob there. But before the man left, he did something significant. He touched Jacob's hip socket, and Jacob's hip was wrenched. In an instant, God disabled Jacob, the man who had always relied on his own strength, his own schemes, his own ability to manipulate and control. God took away his physical strength with a single touch. Jacob limped away from that encounter. For the rest of his life, he walked with a limp. Every single step was a reminder of that night. A reminder that he couldn't rely on his own strength anymore. A reminder that God had changed him. The sun rose as Jacob crossed over the river, and he was limping. He named that place Peniel, which means face of God, because he said, "I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared." Later that day, Jacob met his brother Esau, and something amazing happened. Esau ran to meet him, embraced him, threw his arms around his neck, and kissed him. They both wept. There was no violence, no revenge, just reconciliation and grace. Jacob had spent his whole life fighting, scheming, trying to secure his own future through manipulation. But that night at the river, he learned something profound. He learned that sometimes you have to stop fighting and let God change you. The wrestling match was really about Jacob wrestling with himself, with his past, with his need to control everything. And God met him in that struggle. God didn't just defeat Jacob, he transformed him. That limp Jacob carried for the rest of his life wasn't a punishment, it was a gift. It was a constant reminder that his strength didn't come from himself. Every step he took reminded him that God was the one carrying him. We all have our own wrestling matches with God, times when we fight against what God is trying to do in our lives, times when we insist on our own way, our own plans, our own control. We scheme and manipulate and try to force outcomes. But sometimes God has to break us to remake us. He has to disable our self-reliance, so we'll finally rely on Him. He has to take away our false strength, so we'll discover His real strength. Jacob's limp was the mark of his encounter with God. What's your limp? What is the thing in your life that reminds you that you can't do it on your own, that you need God? The night that Jacob wrestled with God was the night everything changed. He stopped being a deceiver and became Israel. He stopped relying on schemes and started relying on God. He stopped running from his past and started walking into his future, even if he had to limp to get there. Sometimes the greatest blessing comes wrapped in a struggle. Sometimes God has to wound us to heal us. Sometimes we have to lose our strength to find His. Jacob left that river a different man, limping, yes, but blessed, changed, transformed. And that's the man God used to father the 12 tribes of Israel, not the schemer, not the deceiver, but the one who wrestled with God and was changed. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.